I don't think so.
Okay.
Randy stepped away, but I just hit record. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm looking for my,
Do you want me to change herbal architecture to somebody else? Jessica? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, herbal architecture is Chad Lorenz, Lorentz. Thank you so much.
do we know where Richard Niederberg is? Adele, do you see him on the
No, I do not.
participant list?
No, I do not.
Okay, we'll give it another minute for him to arrive. I have not heard from him. I did hear from Jesse. He is not going to be attending.
I'll call Richard.
Yeah. I saw you motioning.
Richard, hey, it's Lana. We're just checking in on you.
Adele, did you get everyone's names?
Yeah, well, do you want me to write them down?
No, just so we could.
Oh, I changed all the names, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is going to be presenting?
Jessica,
I'll be presenting as well as James Rivard and Brad Eklund.
Okay. So I am sharing my screen.
But Brad Eklund will be sharing his screen for the team.
Okay. All right, I'll get to that once we get there. What did he say, Lana?
He is having some challenges with his computer device booting, so he's going to keep trying and will join us as soon as he can get it sorted.
Okay. Do we see him anywhere?
no, but Ira Gold has his hand up.
I know, I just unmuted him. Yes, Ira.
Hey, Lisa. Jessica mentioned somebody else was going to be sharing their screen. Just a heads up, screen sharing, I just tried. It's disabled for anybody but co-hosts.
Yeah, so we'll make him a co-host when it's time for him to share. I can do that. Don't worry about that, Lisa.
Thank you. Can you also make Dean and Lana co-hosts as well as Richard Niederberg once he joins?
Perhaps
actually-
Richard can call in for the time being till he can convert
Okay. I'll
by
call him.
computer.
You mute yourself, Lana, and call him and ask him to do that, please. Thank you, Dean.
Actually, I think only you can do that, Lisa. Make them co-hosts because I don't have that option.
Okay. Let me see.
It'd
I
be
don't-
on the, yeah,
Well, I'm clicking on the 3 bars, right?
yeah.
That are, but it doesn't spotlight for everyone, rename, allow to multi-pin, put on hold. Scott Mandel, if you could hear me, please, can you, if you have the ability to make Lana and Dean co-hosts as well? It doesn't look like I have that ability.
Nor do I.
So Randy kept himself as the host. You need to be the host. Scott, can you ask Randy to make either Lisa or me the host so we can do that? Because he's the only one who has that.
He had to step away. He will be back, and he's not reachable right now at the moment. So we'll have to carry on as
Okay.
set up.
I'm here. What's up? Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Randy, we need you to make either Lisa or me the host because we can't make other people co-hosts in order to have them share their screens and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, I think actually you can, but okay.
No, you can't.
Not, we were not able to.
All right, no worries.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
So now you're the host, Lisa, so you can do it, whatever you want.
Okay, let me see. There you go. Okay, thank you for that, Randy and Adele. Here we go. Here we go. So Brad, Jessica, and one other person, was it James?
Yes.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. We're going to go in and get started. Calling to order Adele Slaughter,
Here,
Dean Cutler,
Here,
Lana Shackleford.
Here.
Jesse is not going to be able to make it. Jesse Porter is out for the evening. He got called into a meeting. Richard Niederberg is running late. Okay. I do not have any announcements, reports, or updates other than to say Happy New Year, everyone. Hopefully we'll have a great year of land use issues to tackle for Studio City this year. Moving on to the survey. I hope everyone takes the time to click on the link that I included along with our land use agenda to take the survey and really voice what you would like to see in Studio City in terms of improvements and adding of trees, signage, bus stops, sidewalks, so on and so forth. So please take the survey. I would really appreciate it, as would the entire community. Your participation is greatly really needed. Moving on to public comments on non-agenda items. I wanted to first, before I move on to that, say this is the land use meeting of the Studio City Neighborhood Council. It's Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. Yes, Lana.
I think Richard has called in and he is on a telephone number. And if Richard, if you can hear me, would you raise your hand on that telephone number so we'll recognize it?
Does he know how to raise his hand on the telephone number?
I think it, Richard, is this you?
*6.
Like, I think it's the 213.
213 number?
I've asked him to.
Hello?
There.
Yes, hi.
Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
You can make him a co-host.
Yes, I'm getting ready to do that. But he disappeared.
I think he just said goodbye and hung up. What?
Okay, I'm gonna move on to public
Public
comment.
comment, you have Patty Kirby.
Lisa, I think you need to read the 54953.
Thank you. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953, subsections E1 and E3, and in light of the state of emergency proclaimed by the governor on March 4, 2020, relating to COVID-19 and ongoing concerns that meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health and safety of attendees, and or that the state of emergency continues directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person, the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard. I should scratch that and say the Studio City Land Use Committee on the date of January 12, 2022 will be conducted via Zoom, telephone, and or video conferencing. Thank you for that, Dean. All right, moving on to public comments. Patty Kirby.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Lisa
Year.
and team, since we have 9, counting Sportsman's as 2 developments between Coldwater and Colfax, I would just like to see on your agenda a listing of all 9 and an update every month on what the status is, if that's something you can do. That's just my ask. That's all.
Patty, are you still on?
Yes.
So just to reiterate, you want to see a list of all 9 projects that are going on between Coldwater and Colfax?
Yes, that are developments along Ventura Boulevard.
So
And
why not between Coldwater and Lancashire?
well, there is another one, that would be the 10th, but I'm counting Sportsman as 2 development projects. One is the hotel and one is the land. So between just Coldwater and Colfax, there's 9.
I'm happy to give updates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Lisa Sarkin. Yes. Lisa Sarkin, go ahead and unmute
Oh,
yourself.
then I unmute myself. All right. Okay. I beg to differ with Patty. The hotel one is already completed. And yes, the list goes all the way to Lancashire, Lisa, as you stated.
Thank you.
So do I unmute myself now? Oh, I'm already.
You are unmuted. Go ahead.
No. I'm okay. I'm done. I'm.
You're done? Thank
Do
you.
I turn myself off?
No, I'll go ahead and do it. Scott Mandel.
Hi, thanks, Lisa. Hello, everybody. My comment on non-agenda item is regarding Sportsman's. This is actually happening right now at shops at Sportsman's, but it is related to the proposed residence project. The issue is traffic. A hazardous, dangerous traffic condition exists right now at the Coldwater entrance. This will be on tomorrow night's public safety agenda. If you look at that agenda, there's a link to a video that shows the conditions currently at that entrance for the shops at Sportsman's. There's another link in the description of that video that shows what happens when trucks park illegally on Coldwater for the shops at Sportsman's. And this relates to the residents at Sportsman's because in their proposal, which we saw at Land Use last year, they're going to be utilizing the same entrance for the 500 plus apartments and additional retail. So if you go to the Public Safety Committee agenda meeting tomorrow, you'll see Ben Besley. He agreed to come on to address that issue. And if you look at the agenda, you can get links to the video of the traffic conditions now, which is actually a public safety and a transportation issue. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Scott. We'll be sure to attend tomorrow night's meeting. I'm sure it'll be. Anyone else with public comments? Adele, do you see anyone on your end with your participants?
There's
Phone
one
number
hand up.
323.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, it's Barry.
Hi, Barry.
So I'm meeting with George from Nithia's office next week. I intend for us to drive in separate cars so we don't have to be in the same car and go to that driveway on Coldwater. Also, the Ventura projects list goes from Lancashire to Long Ridge on the south side of Ventura, and it goes from Lankershim to Fulton on the north side of Ventura. So let's not just think it ends at Coldwater, because it doesn't, and we could get plenty more. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anyone else? Public comment? Okay, moving on to, does anyone have any response to anything that was stated? Committee members? No?
I spoke to Ben Besley yesterday, actually, about that Coldwater entrance issue, so.
And what did he say?
He actually was aware, seemed to be aware, but
Well, you
certainly-
cannot not be aware because.
yeah, not as aware as I would have thought, to be honest, and especially in light of Scott's comment, and knowing that he's attending tomorrow night, but we clearly talked about it, so.
Well, he definitely
I'll-
needs to be made aware of the fact that this is going on, and
Yeah,
the fact that he's not fully 100% aware is very concerning to me, and I'm sure the entire community, because
he did a little more listening than talking than I expected, but nonetheless, he did mention the meeting tomorrow night, and I'll jump on that as well.
right.
But we did
great.
clearly talk about it, and I've gone there many a times and watched and noticed, so
Mhm.
it's very evident.
Well, he needs
Pretty
to.
pretty mind-boggling that you know that could actually develop that way. With
Which
that
part?
queue, with everything that we see, amongst developments and. the
It's
Sherman Oaks issue.
gargantuan. It's never going to happen as long as I'm the land use chair. It's just not going to get approved. 529 units is just way too excessive.
Well, long before that, we've got to deal with this issue of that entrance.
Yeah.
It's going to be a problem. It is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the center is hardly open for, the most part.
Right. We'll have him back again next month. I'll make sure that he attends land use to explain further. One of the issues that I have is with the parking. The lot is just, it's pay to park. And I don't ever remember discussing the ticketed parking. I thought it was only valet, but I want to have him in next week to explain further. Yes, Adele.
So a lot of things are happening along Coldwater. So I've never seen so many people walking across the street from the entrance of Erewhon across the street.
Wow.
I've never in my life, and I've been here for 20 blah blah years, I've never seen so many people walking across the street with cups of coffee and bags that say Erewhon. So I'm concerned for safety. And then there was a huge accident apparently that I think Peter Cole got on video where a Jaguar was coming down the hill north on Coldwater and ran into someone turning left. So I do remember something, and maybe Lisa Sarkin knows more about this, but because she might have known about, I don't know, or Peter, somebody, but they were supposed to create a left turn into Erewhon, into the parking area only. And they did, the city they got around it.
Right.
And they just decided to paint lines instead, which you can see if you've seen the videos. It's pretty alarming, because what happens is people come down Coldwater and they decide all of a sudden, I'm going to turn left into Erewhon, and the people behind them are going, too fast. Everyone's going too fast anyway, but and people get jammed up there. Plus, because it's paved parking, you can't get in quickly. People end up
slow.
What?
The arm is slow
The
getting
arm
in.
is slow, you don't get in quickly, so then people are backed up and there's not a left-hand, a dedicated left-hand turn lane. So it's really super dangerous. And but I also wanted to say about all of the different developments along Ventura Boulevard, really from Fulton all the way to Lankershim. We should include the whole thing, and I would like to see a map of all of it. And there are a lot of environmental problems, water table, et cetera, which we really need to look at and sort of get a comprehensive overview of all of this development. And I'm, seriously, I'm not against development, but I'm against development that goes.
We're
Yeah.
getting
So yeah,
off track,
yeah, okay. I just want to say that it would be great for us to have a comprehensive list of the development from Lankershim all the way to Fulton.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, don't. I'm cool. I'm cool.
that's going to take a while.
Yep.
Let me just, one last comment from Lisa Sarkin.
Lisa, I think you and Barry should jointly talk to Brandon Wilson about all these, everything that's going on around the new shopping center there. And I'm positive that there was supposed to be some way of people to get across Coldwater, although I believe that the city would not allow a signal to be at the Coldwater driveway, and also the one on the other side on Goodland, right?
Yeah.
The city wouldn't let that happen also. But I think both of you and Barry should definitely get in touch with Brandon Wilson.
Yeah.
Because he's the transportation guy.
Yeah.
So try it that way.
Yeah.
And I do have a list, the address of every one of the proposed developments that we know of, which I'll send to you.
Great. That would be
Do
great.
whatever you want with it.
All right. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. One of the things that just a final comment on the sportsmen's, when I do have a conversation with Ben and invite him for land use next month, one of the things that I do want to propose is for him to take those arms away so that there's just an easier, more swift way of pulling into the parking lot and out because it's just not good what's going on there and what I see. And I don't, like I said, I don't ever remember him talking about having a pay arm to come in and out, exit. So I'm not happy about it. We'll talk to Ben about that later.
Well, it's a validation system, but not
still.
not everyone's paying. So you got two issues of pay, and you've got an egress ingress issue with the system that's in play.
That's right. And the validation, I think, only covers 90 minutes. So putting
That's a
that
fair amount of
aside,
time, but that's a separate issue.
that's right. So thank you for everyone's input. I really appreciate it. We're going to move on to number 5 on our list. Okay. So let me, bear with me here. Presentation, discussion, and possible motion. The proposed project is the ElderCare facility, case number Z8 2021 9477 ELD CUB SPP SPR. ENV 2021 9478 EAF. The applicant is SRM Studio City LLC, proposes the demolition and removal of all existing structures for the improvements and construction, use, and maintenance of a 176,974 square feet of floor area with 145 dwelling units and 118 on-site parking spaces for an elder care facility located in the C2-1VL-Rio zone with a 5-story plus roof deck building for a maximum overall height of approximately 77 feet for the main building, 65.5-foot height to the roof deck building for a maximum overall height of approximately 77 feet for the main building. Did I just repeat myself? 65.5-foot height to the top of the parapet and 11.5 additional feet of height to the top of the highest rooftop structure with 1 level of subterranean parking to include 129 licensed assisted living care housing, senior independent housing dwelling units. 25 licensed Alzheimer's dementia care housing guest rooms with up to 28 beds and associated common areas, plus 16 detached 3-story plus roof deck townhomes dwelling units with attached 2-car garages for senior independent housing on individual small lots, and approximately 3,949 square foot, publicly accessible, privately owned and maintained local serving pocket park. The applicant is also requesting the approval of a conditional use permit for the sale and service of a full line of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption by residents of the ElderCare facility and their visitors and or guests in the C2 zone as an incidental use in and accessory to the operation of the main building. The project address, project site is 11611-11695 Ventura Boulevard and 4010-4028 Colfax Avenue in Studio City, California, 91604. We have Jessica Pactman as the representative, key representative with Rosenheim and Associates, along with Brad Eklund and James, right? James Rivard, right? Okay. Okay. Bear with me here while I go to sharing my screen. Are you not able to unmute, James?
I can't, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
So Brad Eklund will share his screen now. Brad, do you have the ability to do that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So welcome. Thank you for being here to present your project. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the presentation, and then I'll have some questions, and then we'll open it up to public comment and committee participation and so forth. So let's get to it.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessica Pactman. I'm with Rosenheim and Associates. We're the land use consultants handling the entitlement application for this property. I'm joined tonight, as you know, by James Rivard with SRM Development, the project applicant, Brad Eklund, the project architect with Herbal Architecture, as well as the rest of the project team members who are on tonight to help answer questions. Next slide, please. The project site is located at the northeast corner of Ventura Boulevard and Colfax Avenue in Studio City. It's currently improved with 1- and 2-story commercial structures with various uses, including a car dealership, offices, a recording studio, retail spaces, and a restaurant. The building that you see on the far east of the property has been recently demolished and is now improved with a surface parking lot. Next slide. The project site is a 2.4 acre commercially zoned property located within the Ventura Cahuenga Boulevard corridor specific plan area. The zoning is consistent with the zoning of the properties to the east, west, and across the street to the south on both sides of Ventura Boulevard, which are also improved with 1 and 2 story commercial uses. Immediately to the north of the project site is the LA River, which is shaded in green and is zoned for open space. And just to the northwest of the project site is an existing pedestrian access way to the river, including stairs and an ADA access ramp. North of the river and south of the commercial properties on Ventura are single-family residential properties, which are shaded in yellow. And across the street to the northwest are the CBS Studios, which is zoned industrial. The property you see on this slide, outlined in white, are the boundaries of the property as they exist today. But if you can go to the next slide, please, Brad. But functionally, there are other areas that are integrated into the property. You will notice that there are 2 areas here shown in orange, which were technically dedicated to the city back in 1923. The orange area on the left was dedicated for street purposes, but is paved as a parking lot and serves as vehicular access to the project site via an easement with the city of LA. The orange area shown right there in the middle was dedicated to the city as a public alley, but is paved and landscaped with vegetation and also serves the project site. The city doesn't have any plans to utilize these 2 areas. So as part of the project development proposal, we're seeking to merge these orange areas into the project site through a vesting tentative track map. We also expect that there will be a 13-foot dedication required along Ventura Boulevard, which is the area shown in red. After the mergers and dedication, the total lot area will be reduced to approximately 2.3 acres. We know that there have been a number of proposals to develop this property in the past by other interested parties. We feel that we have a great alternative here, and SRM Development is very excited to invest in this stretch of Ventura Boulevard. Next slide, please. So just to provide a high-level overview of the project, SRM is proposing a new ElderCare facility at this location with 3 primary components. The western half, shown in pink, is planned for what we are referring to as the main building. It will be a fully state licensed building with 5 stories, 129 assisted living and independent living dwelling units, and 25 memory care guest rooms with up to 28 memory care beds. The main building will also include common areas for amenities and services for the senior residents of the overall project. The eastern half, which is shown in orange, is planned for 16 detached 3-story independent living townhomes, which we are proposing on individual small lots. The northwest corner of the project site, shown in green, is planned for a 3,900 square foot local serving pocket park. This is a component that we would like to engage with your committee and the community about. With the existing access to the river just next to this location, we think there's a really great opportunity to enhance that rather than providing new access to the river. The thought is that this would be a privately owned and maintained, publicly accessible, local serving pocket park that would be a wonderful benefit to the community. From some of our early discussions with some of the members of the community, we understand that the general consensus is that senior housing is an appropriate use of this location, not only because there is a need for the type of housing, but because it is a low traffic generator. Next slide. The project being proposed under the city's ElderCare Facility Unified Permit Ordinance. And I would like to share some information about the process because it really is an anomaly, in that the city foresaw in the early 2000s that a huge part of the population would be entering the ranks of senior citizenship in the next several decades, but that there would not be nearly enough housing to meet that inevitable demand. So in 2006, the city adopted and incorporated this code section into the Los Angeles Municipal Code in recognition that ElderCare facilities are public benefit projects. It created a single streamlined approval process so ElderCare facilities can get the types of relief from the zoning code that are necessary for these facilities in order to allow for more space for not only the much needed housing, but for the necessary services and amenities, all of which would allow seniors to age in place. These facilities have different characteristics than typical residential buildings because they need to be much larger to accommodate a full lifestyle for its senior residents, complete with programmed areas for dining, enrichment, and services. The city recognized that when establishing this process. So the code allows for project applicants to seek things like greater floor area and height and avoid the myriad of requests that were needed before 2006. At the same time, the process recognizes that an elder care facility, even if with a larger building envelope, has a much lower impact on the surrounding community than typical residential housing in terms of things like noise and traffic generation. Elder care really is a unique use that is more contained and therefore warrants the granting of zoning relief. This is a great example of the City of LA planning for the future, and we appreciate the city's vision because it gives SRM an opportunity to bring much needed senior housing as a benefit to the community. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to James Rivard, who will tell you a bit about SRM development and how they selected this property. Jim, you're muted.
Sorry, it's the home office. My wife walked in the middle of the presentation, so thank you. My name is Jim Rivard, or James Rivard. I'm a principal with SRM Development and oversee our real estate development. SRM was founded in 1999, and we specialize in the development and construction of high-quality mixed-use multifamily and senior projects throughout Western U.S., primarily California and Washington State. We've built over 5,700 residential units and over, well, approaching 2 million square feet of commercial space, including over 2,000 units of senior housing in Washington and California, as well as a little bit in Nevada. Next slide, please. What is the ideal location for SRM? There's a lot of different companies building senior housing. We have a particular focus, but like everybody, we're looking for an unmet demand for senior housing. We're very focused on keeping seniors in their community, and we spend a lot of time looking at the surrounding neighborhoods, serving uses. And then we target in these urban high barrier markets. We're looking for obsolete and underutilized sites that don't eliminate housing stock and give us the opportunity to create a first-class project. Next slide, please.
So thank you, Jim. I'm going to take it over from here and start to get into a little bit more of the design of the building and kind of how we got to where we are today. So as Jim and Jessica have touched on, the site provides several unique opportunities and some constraints. In addition to the benefits of this location as an elder care facility, this development is a low traffic generator. There is existing public access to the river at the northwest corner of the site and mature trees and vegetation along the riverbank, which help buffer views. Primary constraints we identified, there's a large drop in grade from the site to the river, and it narrows significantly to the east, and the unique shape of the site was a constraint unto itself. As you're likely aware, this is the existing condition. This is the primary intersection at the top, the Colfax and Ventura Boulevard. And then the view below is farther to the east, looking west along Ventura. We feel this is sort of an underutilized with its existing uses. So how did we sort of start design? Our first step was to take a look at site analysis and what our surrounding uses are. So we understand height is an issue. We wanted to be particularly sensitive to that. So one thing that we wanted to take a look at is sort of views across the street from Kelsey, highlighted in yellow here, sort of identifying the particular or potential range of views from those homes to the north. And you'll see in a minute here how we kind of tried to resolve that. So we also looked at homes to the south. We identified that the residential area is approximately 100 feet higher than the project site up the hill south of Ventura. So once we identified the neighbor's view orientation, we then took a look at what the buildable area was of the overall site. So we started by incorporating setbacks, river landscape buffer to the north, and then identified the floor area and building height that would approximately provide the number of units to justify the economic demands of this type of facility. From an urban design standpoint, it was important to hold the urban edge, and we identified that along Ventura and Colfax. This afforded the opportunity to reduce the massing along the riverside and allowed for protected drop-off for residents. And then being cognizant of the neighbor's orientation, we then consolidated the building height towards the intersection. So as you can see, we kind of took this top floor off and pushed it towards the intersection. And then by providing drive access locations while reducing overall curb cuts to the site and breezeways between the townhomes, this allows for further mass reduction. So as you can see here on the site, we're starting to develop what the townhome massing might take up. And then we wanted to articulate the right-of-way facing amenities and primary access points. These are shown in blue. So what you see here to the west, the main building is the primary active uses for the assisted living building. And then to the east, the townhomes, we've got primary entries for those units right off of Ventura. We also then wanted to start to take a look at breaking up the horizontal massing, and we resolved that by providing vertical elements to the building, which help it not quite feel so long. And then finally, flourishing the site with improved landscaping along Ventura, improving the 10-foot landscape buffer, heightening the existing mature vegetation on the river slope itself. And then finally, you can see just a little silver here in green, the public amenity park at the northwest corner, which will improve that existing public river access. And then here's just kind of a scoped out view of those 6 steps we just sort of went over there for our current development of design. I'm going to take a quick look now at site plan, and then we'll get into some floor plans briefly. So here we see the proposed site plan, the building's orientation on the site. As I mentioned, there are 2 main components to the ElderCare facility development. To the west, the main building, see here, which houses the 129 assisted living, independent living units and the 25 memory care room wing. This has a floor area of approximately 139,758 square feet, as well as parking for 77 vehicles total and 5 stories. The other component are the 16 3-bedroom townhomes, small lot development. There are 3 non-gated access points, 1 along Colfax, you see here, and then 2 along Ventura, 1 being dedicated to the townhomes, the farthest east one. Currently, there are 6 curb cuts along Ventura and 1 along Colfax, so we'd be reducing that, as I mentioned. And then providing the drive access, the auto court along the north side of the site, you see here in sort of this brown color. This allows for additional distance from the river frontage, as well as protected drive access and garage access for all residents to townhomes and for the main building. And then part of the right-of-way dedication that Jessica mentioned, part of the agreement here is for improved sidewalks and streetscaping, widening of the road and undergrounding, power poles and power lines along the eastern portion of the Ventura site. That is not a requirement of the right-of-way dedication, but that is something that we intend to do. I am now going to move into floor plans. I'll do this briefly, but below grade parking, we've got space for 72 parking spaces and some back of house services. Here we see the ground level. In order to activate that ground level at the intersection, we've provided our common amenity spaces, so dining room, bistro, bar, living space. These are available to the residents and residents' guests. Those all flank the right-of-way. And then the primary townhomes, this is a little bit small, but you can see here centered in each unit is the primary resident entry in the garage, 2-car garage to the north side of the townhome. And then level 2, here we see the dedicated memory care wing on the west side of the main building and their associated common spaces, including a small outdoor balcony shown here in this purplish red color. And then otherwise we are getting into typical residential floor plates at levels above. So I will pass through this quickly. Up to the roof deck. So at the roof plan, there are above level 5 for the main building. And level 3 for the townhomes are the common amenity roof decks. We made a concerted effort to move the more active uses, the communal tables, small barbecue, et cetera, push as far away from the river as we could. So sort of flanking the south side of the main building here. And we treated the townhomes similarly, that we congregate activity to the south side of the townhome roof deck. I do want to note also, this is an amenity that is provided. We do find these are typically not heavily used amenities for these types of communities. So we're going to look at some renderings here now. This is first a view from the Colfax-Ventura intersection. I want to take a look at and discuss building heights for just a moment. So the heights we're taking here from the LA Municipal Code, which is from the required lowest grade point 5 feet offset from the building. So this is the primary dining space. And then we want to give the appearance of sort of double height space. So they are generous floor to floor plates, but they, kind of give the appearance of a 24-foot height along the right of way. And then into typical residential floor plates above that. The primary building height that is noticeable is the 65 feet, 5.5 inches to the parapet. And that's for the duration of most of the building. We do have a couple locations. At the highest point, there are 2 of these stair elevator towers at 77 feet. There is a 3rd stair tower that doesn't quite go as high. There's no elevator servicing that tower. So that is not quite as tall as the 77 feet. So again, that happening in 2 locations. By comparison, here are the heights of the townhomes. The highest point being 44.5 feet to the top of the elevator stair overrun here. There are private elevators for these units being proposed for the townhomes. And then the modulating parapets here, you see at 35 feet, 11 inches. These townhomes are varying. This is the most extreme case of building height from LADBS lowest grade point. So I want to take a minute now and talk about some of our material choices. The main building here along Ventura and Colfax, again, we're kind of sitting up the hill a little bit up and across from Ventura. We wanted to treat more sort of the sides flanking the right of way with white and gray stucco, vertical metal siding detailing you see here, and then recessed residential balconies, which are going to be providing a wood-like siding, kind of breaking up the horizontal length of the building. Large storefront windows and a generous level 1 and level 2 floor height provide visual connection from the street to interior activities, and the reserved material palette and color choices suggest a sense of privacy and security for residents while reinforcing that urban edge. And this higher vantage point also is a view that kind of, I feel like, reiterates the breaking up of the facade with those vertical elements, stair towers, and modulation from unit balconies. Here we have a view from the Colfax Bridge looking to the south and east. There's a view here, you can see just a little bit of the drop off and the river facing facade. Here the material palette warms up. We are providing a lot more of this wood-like material. And then there's also, it's not actually in glazing, but this is the existing river access now. And then this is a view from the residential neighborhoods to the north, where obviously this is an aerial view, we're quite high, but there are elements of the Ventura facade wrapping around to this elevation to give it some level of continuity. I do want to point out a majority of these units are sort of a reduced depth unit. So we wanted to, again, do what we could to push it away from the river. There's also a nice view of breaking up of the massings for the townhomes with the breezeways and the auto courts further reinforcing that. I do want to make a note, the surrounding buildings, particularly off of Kelsey here, these are for context and not to accurate scale. So if you see your house there, it's much larger than it probably is in real life. This is the north side looking south. This is the primary residential drop-off area and lobby. You can see large glass and a generous entry canopy, and there's you can see a little bit of the memory care roof deck immediately above that. And then this is my final view here. This is the Ventura Drive entry, which separates the main building and the townhomes. I want to just highlight here kind of the improved pedestrian experience that we're looking to provide, doing that through landscaping and widening the sidewalks. And then just a nice sort of composition of the two buildings side by side. So This concludes my portion of the presentation. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to be passing it back to Jessica here to wrap this up.
Thank you, Brad. I'd like to wrap up by going over the entitlements we're seeking from the LA City Planning, and the city planning case numbers are listed on the left-hand side of the screen. We are seeking a vesting tentative tract map, VTT number 83460, for a merger and re-subdivision of the property into separate ground lots, including a small lot subdivision for the townhomes. The SL attached to the VTT case number stands for the small lot subdivision. And the ADM case number underneath, which stands for administrative clearance, is also related to the city's review of the small lot subdivision, or SLD, for compliance with the relevant requirements and standards. The remaining requests are being made to the zoning administrator under the ZA case number. Going back to the ElderCare facility unified permit process, which I discussed earlier, the process allows the zoning administrator to grant relief from the Ventura Coinga Boulevard corridor specific plan, as well as the Los Angeles Municipal Code, all as part of the ELD action attached to the ZA case number. These are not exceptions or variances, as the process is meant to streamline all requests into a single action, to give ElderCare public benefit projects a special opportunity to seek the deviations they need to allow for the additional housing and program space I spoke about earlier. So under the ELD, we are seeking a site-wide FAR increase of 1.76 to 1 for the unified project in lieu of an FAR of 1 to 1. Relief from maximum lot coverage is also being requested. The overall project will have a lot coverage of 46%, which is well below the maximum allowed lot coverage of 60%. However, because the IL townhomes will be on individual small lots, we need to seek minor relief for 14 out of the 16 townhomes to allow for lot coverages ranging from 63% to 73%. But again, the proposed lot coverage is 46% across the entire site, which is how the specific plan intended for it to be measured. We're also seeking additional height only for the main building. The specific plan allows for a maximum building height of 45 feet, and the townhomes will be within that limitation. But as Brad Eklund shared previously, the main building will be about 65.5 feet as measured to the tops of the parapet on the main building, with some less visible portions of the building, which will cover the stair and elevator overruns, as well as mechanical equipment, which will reach 77 feet at the highest point. We are also seeking relief from the building stepbacks along Ventura Boulevard. And all of these requests really allow us to pull the main building further away from the river and the residential neighborhoods to the north and closer to the street to create more of a stronger presence on Ventura Boulevard. In addition, we're asking for relief from the provision of the specific plan to provide public access to the river when the bike path along the river is built. As for how we're addressing certain provisions of the LAMC, we are seeking relief from the transitional height limitation for portions of the proposed structures. Transitional height is technically measured. It's actually technically triggered because we adjoin the LA River, which is zoned OS. But the limitation was intended to protect single-family residential properties, not a concrete flood control channel. The closest residential property, which is on Kelsey Street, is actually 228 feet from our property line. So in reality, there will be no direct impact on any adjacent homes. We're also seeking building line encroachments for the main building within 15-foot and 17-foot building line areas that are located on Colfax Avenue. Building lines establish antiquated setbacks that conflicts with the setbacks required by the specific plan. But technically we need to resolve that conflict by making this request. We are also requesting relief from 2 river improvement overlay district regulations, which are to provide an ADA compliant access ramp to the river and a riverfront door for the project. We studied how the river access would look, and because of the 25-foot drop in elevation from the project site to the riverway, It would require improving a massive concrete ramp with several switchbacks to allow for that ADA access. It would also involve constructing several retaining walls and the removal of mature trees, including protected trees on the hill along the river. We already have access to the river right on Colfax, as I pointed out earlier. So we thought it would be more beneficial to not only the project residents, but the larger community to instead enhance that existing access with the pocket park. This would also avoid view impacts to the neighbors to the north by maintaining the buffer and screening that's provided by the existing trees along the river. We're also seeking a conditional use permit or a CUB for the on-site sale and service of a full line of alcohol in the main building. The alcohol service will be offered to the senior residents and their visitors and guests, but there will be no public sales. Last but not least, the project is required to undergo project permit compliance review under the specific plan, which is the SPP attached to the ZA case number, and site plan review, which is the SPR. So that concludes our presentation, but the project team is online and we're all available to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Jessica and Brad and Jim. Just one quick question before I move on to all my other questions. So you said that there will be, to your assessment, not a great impact to the residents to the north. But yet you also said that there's a 25-foot drop in elevation to the river. So when we look at this project and your height is at 65 feet, not including the parapet, to 77 feet, when you have that 25-foot drop to the residents from Kelsey and beyond to the north, from their point of view, there's going to be 25 plus 65 is what? 70, 90 to 100 foot building that they're going to be looking at out of their front door. So I'm just wondering, did anyone from your team go into the neighborhood and stand in front of these homes and just kind of looked out to see where your project is going to go and how high it's going to be and the impact to the neighbors to your north?
Yes, we actually did give some careful consideration to that. We tried to try to get some views from the homes along Kelsey. We couldn't really get access to the homes, but what we did is do some shots from the property looking north to the residential uses. And, you know, I guess back in the days they would use a balloon. We used drones, but, you know, we did look at that. But even so, I mean, I think that's the intention of the townhome design and why it was designed to have, you know, 3 stories along the east side of the property and the larger building on the west side, because we felt that the homes, just based on our analysis, there are only a few homes, as Brad showed in the early part of the presentation, that have clear views to the property. So we did give thought to that, but you're right. I mean, with the 25-foot drop down to the river, you know, we already are at a higher elevation than the neighborhood to the north.
Right. So,
So-
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this might feel like a technicality, but the bottom of the river basin is a 25-foot height difference, but then Kelsey goes back up 15 feet. So, or sorry, 10 feet. So we have a 15-foot height difference from our project site to the Kelsey Street elevation.
Because there is a slope downward.
Right.
Kelsey. Okay.
Yes.
Which leads me to my next question, because height is such a huge factor with your project and the specific plan that requires 45 feet. So my question is, why the townhomes being a certain height and the main building being at between 65 and 77 feet high at the highest point with the parapet?
Sorry, is the question why are the townhomes?
Why are the townhomes much lower, shorter in
Right.
height, right?
Yes.
Because you're only going up to 44 point.
Right, yeah. So the difference between the townhomes and the main building is the townhomes will be individual units that will not have the, additional common areas that the residents of the AL and IL or the main building would be utilizing. So the main building, well, first of all, we pushed it closer to Ventura Boulevard, but it also has, program space within on the ground floor, second floor. So with those areas, and also the orientation of the building, which, again, we tried to pull away from the river as much as we could, it results in a taller building and also a larger building. So, I'd say the programming is the difference. The townhomes are just
To add to that a little bit, maybe what we did is we had some conversations with just, a few people in the community, and while it wasn't directed, we were trying to listen. And so what we were trying to do, instead of create a larger one big building, right, that all goes away across like a wall, is to really mask the larger building on the corner with sufficient, I think what Jessica was saying, with sufficient room for the programming and the common area and the number of units we need to kind of support that type of facility, and kind of mask that on that corner, and then drop down to create a lower building with the townhouses as you go down the site. Instead of one large mass, it looks like one large mass. It was to kind of step the building down and create a little better feel. But I think is really what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. So are those units, the townhomes, are they going to be up for sale individually, or are they for rent, or how are they going to be?
We have the flexibility to do either under what we're proposing. And we haven't necessarily decided what to do, but we would be able to operate them either as rental units, which we do it's, in a more suburban setting. You would consider them cottages as part of a senior facility potentially. Or we do have the ability to sell them and still provide amenities from the main building to those units.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, we'd be curious from the community if there's a preference.
I'm sure they're going to want to weigh in on all of it. So in your application, in your paperwork, you had said that you might consider in the future putting solar panels on the roof. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so Green Building Code requires reserving space on the roof for future solar. So at this time, there's no solar proposed, but it's something that could be accommodated in the future if you decide to switch to that, or if the code changes and requires it.
So would it cover the entire roof of the entire building, or is it just a section? I'm just trying to get a visual.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the roof plan, if I'm not mistaken, Brad Eklund might show it, but there's only, it's reserved portions of the roof, not the entirety of the roof. And I believe the roof plan might show where those areas are. So just bear with us. Okay, so you can see those areas shaded in gray. So those would be the areas reserved for future solar.
Oh, okay. Got it. How many square feet are these studios and 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms? How tiny is it? Because you have 100, did I say 145 in my presentation units?
Brad Eklund can tell you probably pretty well, or I know Jessica's looking.
So
right. I wouldn't
49.
want to, maybe I should step back for 1 second just when we go and These residential units, we have a little different philosophy towards senior housing potentially than some. So these units are really very similar to market rate multifamily Class A luxury apartments. So they're not the old model of really small, tiny units. So every unit, every one bedroom, every two bedroom has a full kitchen, even though we provide meal service, just from an amenity for the residents. And it's a better transition for seniors from their homes into these, what they feel that they can cook. They still have all the amenities of their house. So they're full-size apartments, and Brad can give you the range, but they're really no different than a Class A apartment. And the studios still have a kind of a kitchenette of sorts there, so that they can do similar things. So they're full-size apartments.
Just so I'm clear, is this property, has it been sold? Is it bought? Is this like going to happen in terms of just once you get the approval from us and the city and so forth? What's your timing looking like? Is this purchase like a reality for you guys, or are you still feeling it out? Where are you at with it all?
No, we've invested.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out. Hang on.
Say 7 figures. I'm sorry, is that better?
Please.
Is that better?
Yes.
No, the property is going to happen. The purchase is a reality. It actually closes in the first or second quarter of this year. So we'll be purchasing it. And we've already invested between payments to the ownership, to the seller, as well as design. You know, we're into it 7 figures already.
Okay.
So we're committed to the purchase of this property.
Okay. And what are your plans with incorporating the river? Are there any plans of improvements? I know it has to be ADA compliant, but I'd really like to see some major improvements incorporating the river with trees and brush and clear, I mean, you know, as much greenery as possible and improvements.
Yeah, so the pocket park is, you know, the highlight of the improvements to the river. That's the extent as of now that is planned. But of course, I think, you know, we're open to comments on, you know, if more trees, you know, people would like more trees planted along the river, any other improvements. But yeah, really the highlight right now is the pocket park, and we're hoping that it would be a feature that everyone would enjoy in the community.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to public comment. Ira Gold.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Hey, so I have a question and a few points of feedback, if I may. My question, and then I'd like to grab it back, if I may. Would the
Ira, you have to speak into the microphone. We can't hear you.
Okay. Is this any better?
You got to stand still because you keep coming in and out. But yes, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my face is about an inch away from my screen, so there might be a glitch with my computer. It may have fell earlier today. I don't know. Yeah. So my question would be, before my comments, is would all that parking on Ventura remain? Because there's a good 15-20 spots on that stretch of road. So that's my question. Then I should I continue or should I wait for the answer?
How many questions do you have?
I have one question and 3 quick points of feedback.
Okay, why don't you hang on a second, let them answer your question, and then you can share your feedback. How's that?
Perfect.
All right.
Sure. So yeah, so there is a metered parking along Ventura and Colfax. We got some early input from someone from the community that they'd like us to work with DOT to designate or improve a designated westbound right turn only lane on Ventura for cars turning right and north on Colfax. So we are working with DOT on that. We hope we can succeed. So that may require the removal of maybe 2 or 3 metered parking spaces, but we would expect that the remainder of the spaces would remain.
Okay, great. So thank you for the answer. So a couple of quick points of feedback. So The townhome section seems like they'd be pretty far from the nearest street crossing, so there'd likely be some kind of a safety issue with people start crossing the street to go. I'm assuming people would want to go to the restaurants and bars across the street as well. So if you would please consider a crosswalk crossing Ventura. The other point of feedback would be this part of Ventura is mostly 2 or 3 story buildings. So while the townhomes look like they would fit into that, the height of the main building might have a negative impact on the street's continuity. I'm also concerned that it would provide a precedent for potential future development. So that's just something that I'd like to be considered. Also, something about solar. I know solar often causes some glare issues when it's kind of in near residential. So especially when the roof is visible below other homes. So if that ever becomes something that you're going to be doing, or you are going to be putting solar on there, please do consider that that the glare. I've heard and seen several instances where homeowners have had some pretty big issues, and once those solar panels are up there, it's really difficult to make everybody happy at that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ira. Next is Scott Mandel.
Hi, thank you. I have also just a couple questions and some comments. I saw in the photos, it looked like the Riverwalk was being completely redone, but I think, Jessica, you just said it's just a pocket park. The Riverwalk between Colfax and Tujunga on the south side right now it's a mess, and it doesn't access Tujunga. It accesses Tujunga on the north side, but not on the south side. Right now, it's a growing homeless encampment, and all of the fences to all of the businesses between Colfax and Tujunga are all cut, and there's trash and fires and screaming and yelling and all that going on. Also, the bridge, pedestrian bridge that goes over the river, is in pretty poor shape. The boards are all busted. There's holes in them, and that would hopefully be something you guys could work with the county and maybe make an improvement. So I just want to be clear that the river improvement is not like in the pictures. It's basically just the pocket park. Also, what has transpired with Paul Krikorian's office and their input on it now that this is in Nithya Raman's district, and have they given you any feedback? And lastly, I think it's great having alcohol in senior living. Sign me up.
Thank you. So, we don't have any plans, about the homeless encampments or mess along the Riverwalk. Unfortunately, that's an issue that's everywhere, and I hope that the city can do something about that. But thank you for the feedback about the condition of the bridge. I mean, that's something that we can look at. In terms of feedback from the council office, so we've been in touch with Paul Krikorian's office before the redistricting. We did also recently brief Nithya Raman staff, and so we just had a first meeting. They were very appreciative of the update. They had some input, which about the length of the frontage of the project, but really we haven't really continued with discussions with them yet. I think they're interested in the feedback we received today. But yeah, we did brief them so far, and we'll continue discussions with them.
All right, great, thank you. Richard Niederberg.
Yeah, my question was about dealing with the parking, loading and unloading on the river side of the building. I'm just trying to see where and when are food trucks, medical supply trucks, and all that stuff going to unload quietly without causing a problem for people outside of the river or even people in your building. Also, should one of your residents become severely disabled or pass, where would ambulance or other truck park or pull in? I don't know if they can make it into the parking underneath, if any, but I'm just trying to see what's going to happen while the truck traffic in and out. Where do you get?
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Brad, if you could please, pull up the site plan that shows the loading area and maybe quickly walk through. I know we have a loading space within the enclosed building, but maybe you can walk everyone a little bit through that.
Yes, so first I'll take your emergency vehicles question. So we've talked to LA Fire, and so right now this is a fire lane along the north side of the building. So we haven't discussed for ambulances, for example, if they needed to come by, where would they come? But we do have adequate spacing for a fire truck along the north side. So we'd expect they'd probably pull up somewhere in this space where there's adequate width for an emergency vehicle. We'd get them off of the right of way though, for sure. The ramp down to the garage below is right here off of Colfax, and the expectation would be emergency vehicles would never go into the garage. Their intent is that they don't go down there. Otherwise, servicing for the facility, whether it's food drop off, stuff like that, which will happen at the commercial kitchen. You can see this back of house corridor here. There's also a trash room here, so we need to discuss with trash services, but the intent is that they would be able to pull up here off of the driveway so that we could still have traffic going in and out if needed in off-peak times. But there would be space for them to pull up here alongside the building.
Where is the discreetly, would there be a hospital, a van, a hearse, or something of that nature, so as not to upset people that live there?
So I might reach out to Jim Rivard to answer this question a little bit. We do have shuttle bus parking for the community. This is for day-to-day activities and going around town, going to do events, things like that. Typically,
this is
yeah,
Jim, and I can weigh in real quickly, Brad. So I think you answered it. Richard, it's a good question. It's a very common question we get, particularly related to ambulances and hearses, and the reality is it's really not very common. I mean, most of our residents, we're not having lots of ambulances calls. We're not having a lot of people die in our facilities. You know, they do pass away in our facilities. They come, they're very discreet. Ambulances do come, but it's really not as often. If an ambulance comes, they're coming right to the front door. Just like any other place, they're going to get to where they can be in and out as quickly as possible, but it really doesn't happen all that frequently.
My question is there because I spent about 100 days in Studio City Rehab up the street, not very far up the street, and it was very, very visible when somebody was being brought in, brought out. I don't know if they're
we're very different than. It's a good question. It really is common, but we're very different than skilled nursing or a rehab facility. Those are usually a much more infirm.
Care facility too. It wasn't just rehab.
Yeah, it's just more of there's more infirmity. It's a higher level of care, and so that it's just a little bit of a different type of project. We really just don't. It's just not that common.
I was just talking about.
But if an ambulance comes, it's coming right to the front door.
Just people coming in and out by vehicle. That's all. On stretchers. Yep. That's all. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Brandon Marino.
Hi, I might have missed this detail. Sorry if I apologize in advance if I did. But regarding the south side of the building, in regards to the elderly section, not necessarily the townhouses, has the side of the building been designed to mitigate sound bounce? Because it is a tall structure facing Ventura Boulevard, and it's almost right up to the boulevard, and it's facing the hillside. I'm not a sound engineer. I have no idea. I'm just guessing here that the traffic sound from Ventura Boulevard will bounce off the slab side of the building and affect the homeowners up in the hills. So has that been designed and has that been factored into the design to break up the sound a little bit?
I can take this. So to answer your question bluntly, not to any serious extent. We do have an acoustics engineer who we have not brought into the project yet, but we will have them review the project, both internal and external, site analysis, things like this, to determine what is best for the building and the community. And this is a comment we can definitely take. How can we reduce sound bouncing off from Ventura up into the hillside? I can't promise it won't happen for a building of any height, but it's certainly something that we can bring up when we're discussing this with our acoustics engineer.
Lana?
Hi, thanks. I have a question in regards to the townhomes. You designated that the number 16 would be appropriate, and I would like to ask why it's 16? Why not 8? Why any at all? What is the thinking behind that development, which is so different than the main building and your elder care facility? And then I have other questions too.
Yeah, there's a number of pieces that went into that. So it's again a good question. And we really did reach out to a few people. And we thought it was important to drop the height and not have a solid structure, all the way across the site. And so we wanted to break it up into 2 separate uses. And the townhouses seem to be an appropriate use. We actually looked at a much higher density as well, more of a multifamily senior type project there that was bigger and bulkier. But we thought this was more appropriate to step down. And then when you get to the number and the size, it's kind of a iteration of trying to determine what's an appropriate size unit for a senior that wants a more independent, either rental or home, but basically a home. And so it's really designing something that fits well, that also the real estate is, as all of you know, in Studio City, is not inexpensive. And so it's a balance of trying to afford the site and to allocate some of the cost to those townhomes so that we can afford to build the senior project as well. So it's really a cost allocation and a balance between, what size main building do we need to functionally operate, because we have a certain amount of costs. The main building is very expensive to operate, obviously, with staff and food and utilities that we pay for. So it's really a balance between the two and trying to afford the site, trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood and step the building down instead of having a bigger mass structure and more density. So it was really trying to balance that.
As opposed to maybe a commercial use. Also, the townhomes themselves, they are 3 stories, or am I missing something that?
They're 3 stories.
3. Okay, so seniors who may live there are going to have stairs in their townhomes, or every townhome will have in itself its own elevator for 3 stories? Correct.
It will. They will all have stairs. And these units are targeted at a more active senior that's moving into the main community. So if you say the average senior's moving in is 80, the average age in this might be 60. Well, it can be 62 to 75, or it could be much younger and more active. But each unit is designed so that at any point anybody wants an elevator, we can come back and install an elevator in those units, in the individual units.
Because
so
most
they'll have their own individual elevator.
Thank you. Because most of the seniors I know are looking to not have stairs anymore in their homes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everyone is designed with an elevator.
But you said that there were stairs inside their private homes. Is that not?
But they still have to have stairs. You're going to have stairs. Legally.
Just the comment is, if it's a 3-story townhome where a person lives, I just think seniors are really looking to not be in a 3-story staired thing. Anyway, just a comment from most of the folks that that I know that look to try to find that one, one level living situation after they have lived in multi-story homes before. And then I believe earlier there was a question regarding the height of the main building and what constitutes that. And Jessica did address that the main area, which is where you have your living area and your common dining area, that area is very high. I mean, what is the height of that? Is that 20 feet high? And why did you decide to have that front area, the common area, with such high ceilings? I think that, of course, is the base that then is driving the rest of the building up even higher. What was behind that? Is it necessary? Could that be a lower thing? Is it just aesthetics? What drives that height for that area?
Lana, I think if I may, I'm going to share my screen again and just maybe clarify the height there, and I can more thoroughly explain what's going on, because it's not actually 25 feet. Sorry. So what you're looking at here, this dimension 23, call it 24 feet. This incorporates both the dining space at ground level, and then this transitions into the memory care wing. So these are residential units. And so what we wanted to give was kind of the appearance of this large double height space to kind of open up that along the right of way. But the floor to floor at grade, this is 15 feet. So they would have approximately 13-foot high ceilings for these common spaces. And that could be somewhere that there could be some give if it was worth it to the community that we would maybe take a foot off or something from the overall building height, we could absorb that on the ground level. We just felt like, sorry, that's the thing.
No, yeah, thank you. No, it's very informative, and the aesthetic and the renderings are just world class, and yeah, they're lovely. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I also appreciate you, Brad, mentioning the dimensions of the surrounding homes and the other buildings from across the street. It does absolutely give it kind of a different visual scale. I'm very familiar with this area. I'm very familiar with this property. I've lived just down the street for about 23 years. I've frequented this property because there are many places that have been there, and some have already gone, that I patronized. So I am very familiar with the property itself and the other businesses that I patronize on Ventura Boulevard there. And, in that rendering, the buildings as well across the street, from the across the street view, are much smaller in scale, even though they've got the big hill behind them. So I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, because it would really dwarf something that large. Would just be sticking out. It would just really stick out. I think the only large building that kind of sticks at a place to me, no offense to the City National Building, but I think, right there on the other side across Radford, it's pretty big and towers over everybody. But thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate it. Thanks for your presentation.
Thanks, Lana. Adele Slaughter.
You want Lisa Sarkin to go first?
Sure. Lisa.
Thank you, Adele. Okay, so I do live on the north side of the river, and I do know that I'm 20 feet lower. Also, I know that the sound will be unbelievable if you don't take care of that in some way. The first developer, sometime I believe it was in 2000 or 2001, that came to show us off his 397 75-foot building, 397 apartments, that we had a sound man come out, and it is estimated that all those windows being open would be devastating to my neighborhood. And that is on the north side. I think that the visual scale of the hillside is way off. Those buildings on the hillside are much closer to Ventura Boulevard, and that many of those will end up being looking out from their windows right into the building. I'd like to know if you have the soil and the land surveys done, how many parking spaces are going to be on the full, the whole entire lot available. I don't care about the garages for the townhomes. The staff parking, how many people are going to be needing to be staffed there, and how many parking places will they have to fill?
Well, the application says 24 staff members.
All the time, 24 every shift?
Yeah.
No, that's the maximum.
Yeah, at any given time, there will be no more than 24 staff on site.
For all those people that are going to be living there? Okay. The ElderCare, I don't understand this. Other than the people that have Alzheimer's, or I'm sorry, but I don't remember what the other thing might have been. All the rest of the people are going to be what age group?
Average age is 82.
Is there a requirement?
No,
And how?
that's just the realities. That's just the reality of all the industry. That's what I thought you were asking.
Isn't it 62 and up, but the average being around 82?
Yeah, technically you have to be over 62 years old, but there's.
I don't care about the technicality. Is there a rule? That's what I'm asking.
There's a state law that's over 62 and over.
Okay, and what about the townhomes, and especially if they're sold?
The same.
Okay, so everything is going to be called a senior living, really. It's really not elder care. To me, elder care means is people that need assistance of some sort, no matter what. And that's exactly what I thought you guys were always talking to me about.
If I could address that, so the city's elder care ordinance, so there are definitions in the municipal code. An elder care facility by definition is for residents 62 years of age or older. And as components of that, it could include assisted living, independent living, or Alzheimer's dementia care, or what we're calling memory care. So by definition, all three of those components are considered elder care. And only assisted living, independent living require assistance with 2 or more daily tasks.
And
Okay.
to take that a step further really quick, Lisa, one quick step further, just to be very clear, because this is, I want to make sure that we are clear that this is what we discussed earlier with you. It is a fully licensed RCFE, residential care facility for the elderly through the state. So the entire building is a fully licensed RCFE. For example, all the showers in there are roll-in showers. It is specifically geared toward independent and assisted living. Meals are included in the rent, 2 or 3 meals depending on the programming. So it really, although state law, city, ElderCare defines it as 62 and over, the practicality is we'd go a long way before we find a 62-year-old living in one of our communities, unless there's some real extraordinary circumstances. The average age really is, our target market is really 75 plus, and really the average is about 80 years old.
And all of your, what I'm going to quote with my fingers, even though you can't see me, the entitlements, which I absolutely refuse to call an entitlement, you are asking for deviations from the specific plan. The specific plan is superior to the LA Municipal Code. I don't care what the state has. All of you only spoke about the city's elder care. And anything that's more restrictive is how all of us on the Plan Review Board look at the specific plan. It is more restrictive. I believe it's on page 2, where it says that anything that's more restrictive in the specific plan is superior to the municipal code. Just want to bring that to your attention. And the other serious thing here is that to have even a beautiful building up there and you don't do something to give the community some kind of improvement along that river, and maybe even replacing the footbridge. That is a city footbridge, not this county, even though it goes out of the over the channel. The city is responsible for the stairs, the ramp underneath the bridge on the south side and on the north side, and the footbridge and the area that walks up to Dilling. Okay, that I have a map. That's absolutely true. So, you know, you wouldn't have to deal with any other any other government agency other than the city for that area. As for going down the river, I'm sure the county wouldn't mind if you planted 1 million trees there. But this is, as you know, I thought that an elder care in this facility was a very, very good use of that property. It's so narrow. You can't really build anything more than 1 floor underground there. But this is twice as large as I ever imagined. And if those condos were for sale, that would be a whole different ballgame to me altogether. I still think that a modified elder care is exactly what needs to be built on that property, but this is just way too much, way too big. And I think it would create a giant tunnel right there on that corner. And thank you for listening.
I appreciate that. Can I address that really quickly, just to kind of clarify a little bit? I do appreciate your comments, and I know this is your neighborhood, and I really do. I mean, we really haven't deviated too much from when we originally spoke with the building, but the problem we really run into, just to be very clear, is these buildings are extremely expensive to run. I mean, our staffing, 24 employees at peak staffing, it's a lot of people. And there's a lot of services going on: food, assistance, activities, housekeeping. There's just a lot of people there. They're very, very expensive. And so the problem is very much that, we could say, let's build an 80-unit building, let's chop 2 floors off. But now we still need the same staff by and large. We still need a chef, we still need a housekeeping. We can't afford it. And the rents become totally outrageous, and it's already a problem. I mean, these are expensive to operate, they're expensive to run, they're expensive to live in. But it's the best solution that's kind of in the market's come up with, and it just takes a certain size to work well. And so that's really what we're dealing with here, is trying to deliver a community in your community so that people can stay in your community. As they age in place. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do here.
All right, thank you.
Lisa, if I could also address the elder care. So Lisa Sarkin, you're absolutely right. The specific plan does prevail wherever limitations are more restrictive than the LAMC. The specific plan prevails. However, the elder care facility ordinance also allows the zoning administrator to grant deviations from the specific plan, the Los Angeles Municipal Code, the Rio, any supplemental use districts, which is why we have listed in our requests that we are not only deviating from certain provisions of the specific plan, but the Los Angeles Municipal Code. It really is whichever is more restrictive, which is why we have, we're addressing both.
Adele?
Yes. Hi, thank you all for coming and presenting your plans. My first reaction, just so you know, when I saw the building on the corner of Colfax and Ventura was, wow, that is high. And I know the stores across the street, they are not that high. So those buildings would dwarf everything on Ventura Boulevard and would look down into the neighborhood to the south. One of the primary reasons for the creation of building heights along that corridor is that we wanted to keep the scope and character of the boulevard, and that has been so for a very, very long, for like 31 years, I think. And the specific plan limit height for the property is 45 feet. and anything higher would require an exemption. And I know, I hear what you're saying about the difficulty of the cost, but I'm not sure. I think you might come up, since you guys are so smart, come up with different options than building 77 feet high, which I think is way too high and out of character for our neighborhood. And I also question, so if I'm not 70 yet, but I would not buy a house. I would not buy a 3-story townhouse I would not do it, because I want to be on a 1-story, and I wouldn't even want to be in an elevator. So if the seniors don't buy those houses, who are you going to sell them to? You don't have to answer that right away. I had some other questions. I think the height of that building is a super big problem, and I think you need to rethink that. Are you going to have gas or electric in the kitchens? That was a question. And also, you're raising the height of the vegetation along the river. I do know that portion of the river pretty well, and when it floods, that river is intense. I mean, it goes up very, very high. So you will, that is a floodplain, that area. So there's that, of course, there. And, I just think it's out of character for Studio City. I think the building does not, I like the wood on the side of on the one side of the building. I think that's good. I think the height is absolutely a problem. And I think it's unrealistic to think, unless you're 40, you would buy a 3-story townhouse. And also the rooftops, they will look into the surrounding neighbors. And I think that is something also in the specific plan that has been disallowed. So I just think, and you never answered the question of how big, what square footage are the units? You did say they had all this amenities, but what is the square footage of those units?
Well, ballpark, they're probably 500 square foot studios, Brad. I would say 725 square foot 1-bedrooms and 900 to 1,000 square foot 2-bedrooms.
And that's in the big building, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
townhouses are 2,500 square feet roughly.
Mm-hmm. And so if you sell,
I will note just really quickly on the decks, just to answer your question, because we had talked to Lisa and some of the other neighbors express that same concern. So the townhouses, the decks face Ventura. They don't face the rear toward the residential, toward your neighbor, to the neighborhood back there across the river. So they actually face Ventura and the street. There is one deck on the main building. It doesn't, frankly, we don't get a lot of seniors using the roof deck. It's an amenity, but it's not a place a lot of seniors hang out.
Just for height purposes, I would just cut that right out. So there's no point in having it. But if a townhouse is purchased, does that mean the buyer can sell it back to anyone from the public, or do they have to sell it to a senior?
It's age restricted.
It's age restricted. Mm-hmm.
Adele, if I may, you had a couple of other questions: gas versus electric, and then the vegetation along the river. So in the units, electric is proposed across the board, and then but there is a commercial kitchen which would have gas equipment. Regarding the river frontage, where we are providing planting would be on our property line. There's a 10-foot landscape buffer on the north side of our property. That is what we would be developing with vegetation and trees and things like that. We aren't proposing to cross our property line for any extra planting or anything like that on the county side.
But I would prefer that you take that on and have it as part of your improvements that you would be responsible for. I think that would be appropriate to ask from committee. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just concerned basically that when you're doing your soil tests, go a little deeper than you think is necessary. Again, you're all in a floodplain there, and there's water under there, as I'm sure you already know. I mean, the aquifer is about 100 times bigger than the actual concrete and channel. So you might want to take a little bit extra safety. That building's 77 feet sounds pretty heavy, so you'd better put some good sized pylons or posts in there and know how deep you're really going, because you could be just on sand and have water under the sand. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I also, I know Lisa Sarkin asked the question about the soils conditions as well. I want to share that we did have a thorough soils report prepared and reviewed by LADDS, and they have already approved the soils report, which confirms that the property is suitable for the proposed project. And the subterranean parking level is only going underground by one level, or about 11 feet. I believe groundwater was discovered at about 40 feet. So we're well above that water table. But I appreciate the caution.
Patty?
Just a quick question. Did you consider scrapping the townhouses, lowering the main building and spread it along to the end of the property so that there's only 3 stories the whole length? With maybe, alternating so it doesn't look like a wall, but why do you need the townhouses? And maybe just have the one facility be lower all along? Question.
That's a really good question, Patty. We did actually look at that, and one of the early schemes we looked at, dropping the main building and taking up the entirety of the block, it would result, believe it or not, in a more massive building than what we're showing tonight. And I think a point, Jim, that you made earlier, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but it might make it difficult for the senior residents to walk across the entire length if they're trying to get to different, amenity spaces or areas within the building. So we found that, looking at the view studies, that it would really make more sense to break up the buildings, have a lower height on the east, and some more separation between the structures, so it breaks up the street. We have over 800 feet of street frontage on Ventura Boulevard. And that the design that you're suggesting, believe it or not, would actually be taking up more of the lot coverage and making it more of a bulky, massive building. Whereas this design, we're pulling it back and focusing it on Ventura. Go ahead, Jim.
To be really clear, what Jessica's saying is we would take it down a level to a 4-story building, not a 3, but we would take it to meet more appropriately code. We would come down 4 stories, but what happens is, to get the necessary square footage to support, frankly, the cost, the operations, and the land cost, it becomes about an 800-foot mass broken by a driveway that also has to come closer to the river. And so it becomes a much bulkier, bigger building. And I know that we talked to a few people early and showed them, and the reaction we had was, well, we don't really like that big bulky mass, and so that's why we focused on the townhouses and placing those so that we don't have an 800-foot mass blocking. It looks like 2 separate projects. One's much lower, and then we really massed it on the corner to limit that height. But that is why we did that, and it is something we did take a hard look at.
Well, the comment is it is a bulky mass now, but it's 5 stories or whatever it is. So you could design it so it didn't look like a bulky mass. Anyway, so move on. Thank you for your answer.
Well, just to be clear, the property is sized irregular, and it's at 100,428 square feet. So, I understand what they're doing there with the townhomes being a little bit lower and then the main building being higher to add a little dimension there. So Melanie Winter, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm curious about the townhomes. You do these senior facilities. I assume you've done townhomes like this in other senior facilities. Can you share with us where those are so because I'd like to understand more about who the client base is who downsized to a 2,500 square foot, 3-story townhome as seniors. And I wonder, maybe it doesn't pencil out, but I was wondering if you had looked at different configurations for that portion of the residential area. And I'm assuming these are people who need less, who are more independent, who don't need the services as the other building. Did you look at doing a different configuration and maybe having retail on the bottom? Would that retail help to offset some of the revenues that you need to maintain your services in the corner facility?
So kind of three answers to that. I'll try to go in order. So first of all, we have built, I mean, our partners have our operating partners is who we go back to. And our operating partners, I would say, are kind of the gold standard in this industry, the different groups we work with. I would say collectively, they've owned or operated, I don't know, 100,000 of these units, 50, 80, 100,000 or more. I mean, collectively, they probably own 50,000 units right now. So they're very well versed and they're some of the best in the industry. You're exactly right. Most of, say, the cottages, as I referenced in the suburban markets, are ground floor, one level type units. It's much harder to do. It's much more expensive to do what we do, which is come into these higher barrier, really urban markets and build a community so that residents can stay in their community. Because the goal is not, I mean, I could, we have partners that own buildings in Riverside that have one level buildings. But we don't want people from Studio City. The goal is not to have people from Studio City have to move to Riverside to do that. And there's really not a lot of sites in Riverside where you can go build, or excuse me, Studio City, you can go build one level units. That's just reality. And so we have looked at these as far back as Washington, D.C., and they've been highly, highly successful, very well received because they do have the elevators. So with every unit having its own elevator, they're not sharing an elevator. I mean, it's no different than the main building. The main building, people are on the second, third, fourth, fifth floor, but they have an elevator. So in this case, it's 2,500 square foot unit, but please remember that the main level is the garage. So you have a garage, and then you have 2 levels of living above. So you really have 2 residential levels above. And so they, a resident will come in, park their car, get in the elevator. They can take the stairs. My parents are 80 and 85 years old. They live in a 3-bedroom house and they refuse to leave. They think the stairs are good for them, but and they park their car and they go up to their level and they have a main living area, and then they have their bedroom, 2 bedrooms up on the upper level. So it really is well set up. So we don't have any concerns. We aren't going to try to build something we don't think it's going to succeed. This is a very expensive project. So to answer your question, we've looked very hard at this. We've built a lot of urban communities and we're very comfortable with this approach. I mean, I can tell you it's crazy. We've already heard from people in your community reaching out to us to both buy and rent these. So word is out, and we're already hearing from seniors in the community wanting to downsize, and the size isn't it, but I mean it is much cheaper than some of the homes in the community. So that's probably the best answer I have there. We're very, very comfortable with that and with the elevators. Let's see, I had 2 more questions. One was, can you remind me of those?
Melanie?
Oh, did we look? Yeah, we did look at a different.
Thanks for unmuting
model.
me again. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, we did look at a different model, but again, what happens is.
Sorry, I did have a question really quick to clarify on that. Is the 2,500 square foot inclusive of the garage?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So the next question was, did we really look, and it goes back to this mass and the structure. So right now with the depth of the townhouse, to get flats, right, was what we would call them, similar to the other building across the street. And we have built these in urban markets where we have an assisted living facility on one, and we have next to it or even across the street, we have what I would reference as more 55 and older. So you have a more active senior, and typically they're not 55. In this case, it's limited to 62, but it's probably more like generally 70 plus that might move into the say more active, where they have a full apartment as well, but they're not in the main building. They're not paying for meals. They can come do it a la carte. They can use the activities a la carte. But those are flats. So it goes back to those are flats. You have an elevator building. What happens though is we have to get a sufficient depth in there in each unit in a corridor. And so what's going to happen is, even though we take a level off of it, we're going to have to come much closer to the river. And so the building's going to feel much closer to the neighborhood. It's going to feel much more bulky because we have to expand the footprint. So we end up with a much bigger footprint for this building. And frankly, instead of 16 residents, you end up with like 50 people across the street, 50 additional residents across in this one little, in this piece of the project. And so it becomes much more impactful overall. So really the townhouses to us was just much less impactful from the number of units, from becoming closer to the river, from a bulk and a scale and all of that. So we really were trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood by limiting it to the townhouses.
I apologize. I directed Jim to answer something incorrectly. The garages are not included in the floor area, but the garages themselves are about 410 square feet. In addition to that floor area of numbers 2,326 right now.
Wow.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Brad, for the correction.
My fault.
So 2,300 square feet of living area.
Wow.
Good.
All right, thank you. Lana and then Peter.
Hi, thanks. There were a couple of things that I asked. Hey, Jessica, when you were going through your presentation, you had mentioned relief multiple times. I was wondering, I don't know if I have this accurate, but I think I made little check marks up to like 8 times. I was wondering if there would be like a little cheat sheet or a little summary that we could get listing, just a listing of each of those reliefs that you were going to inquire about. And I thought there was one other little thing about, okay, well, I think that was really it. Thanks. That's all.
Peter Cole.
Hi, I live right behind Sportsman's Lodge, and I'm going to get one of these mega projects in my backyard or my front yard. I've lived through the construction project in my neighborhood, and this just looks like a nightmare for everyone on Kelsey Street. And this looks like a very expensive project. So I think you guys should consider doing a artist rendering from the vantage of standing on Kelsey Street, but not one of these fancy forced perspective, let's fool your eye artist renderings. But if you truly believe you're doing what's best for the neighborhood, then if you drew up a accurate representation of what it looks like for the neighbors, then there shouldn't be any objection. But I think you owe it to the neighbors over there. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
I'll comment, Lisa.
Go ahead.
I want to revisit this elevator situation in the townhomes. I'm a little baffled by it. I think I heard at first there were perhaps provisions being built into the each unit, and then I heard they're going to be elevators, or
there
how does
will
that
be elevators. Yeah, just to clarify, sorry, I think it came off confusing, but each unit is planned to have an individual private elevator. It's in the plans, yes.
delivered with a
access.
full elevator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Each unit will have an elevator.
All right.
To
That's
go
fine.
from not just to enter
3-stop elevator.
3-stop elevator on
Right.
each floor of where they live
Actually,
in
It
their
would access,
interior.
yeah, it would access the ground level where the parking garage is, all the way up to the roof deck. So each floor.
Okay. Expensive proposition, but understandable. So I think what everyone's concern is here is clearly what we're hearing is exceptions to the specific plan. And I think we need to hear a little bit more about the zoning administrators exceptions that can come into play, I guess. But if I understand it correctly, it seems like the specific plan is perhaps being asked or being held hostage to the operating costs of the project and the height. And I don't know how this committee has ever made decisions based upon a project's operating costs and what makes economic sense. And I think it's a large parcel and everyone has shared different viewpoints of how to skin the cat. But I think the elephant in the room around the corner is clearly the height. And I don't think that escapes here in the runway and such. So I think that's a big dilemma for getting this approved accordingly, unless someone can really bring in the zoning administrator's ability to just waive off the entire specific plan with regard to 45 feet. That would be my concern.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
more thoughts? Dean?
No.
Okay.
I had one more thought, actually.
Sure.
I just wanted to agree with Dean about, you guys have, James has spoken a lot about the cost of the project, and really that's not our problem, right? And that's not our problem to solve. And I think 3 stories, 2,350 square feet for senior living is excessive, perhaps. And I mean, I am a senior living in my house, which is 1,800 square feet, but of course I have a yard and so forth. But maybe there's you have some wiggle room there. And I think the townhouses are probably your moneymaker, because either you'll get a good deal of rent or you'll sell each one for over $1 million. So, but I don't think your financial, the cost of this project is our problem. Our problem is, does it fit into the neighborhood, and is it appropriate for, does it fit into the plans all around it? Is it going to upset people? So, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Lisa, who I know has lots to say.
Lisa, can I just say something? We can look at I'm happy to look at the floor plans on the townhouses if you like. And they're said 25. I threw that out there, 2,300. And I think, Brad, there's a few hundred square feet. I mean, when you look at a 2,300 square foot unit, and we can get into it. I mean, we've tried to design what we think is a very appropriate unit for a senior. There's storage on the main floor that I know you're including in that, Brad, as well, with the garage. So it's storage. It could be converted to an office if they want it, but it's kind of generally storage. So really the living area up above is, I'm going to guess, closer to 1,800 to 2,000 on those upper floors, Brad, if I had to guess. And they're really well laid out for a senior. They're adequate. They're not huge. Kitchen, everything else, so that they really are. We're trying to provide something that works well, and to just be clear, we're trying not to make our expense your problem or the community's problem, but it's really more an acknowledgement of why the city passed the ElderCare ordinance and why they gave this ability to the zoning administrator to deviate from the specific plan, is because it's very, very difficult and very expensive to operate and build these in these markets. And so the current zoning just wasn't allowing. I mean, Los Angeles is probably one of the most underserved senior markets on the West Coast when it comes to senior housing. If you look at places like Seattle, which have been very progressive with code, they have 5 or probably 10 times the amount of senior housing per capita up there that you do in Los Angeles. And it's one of the reasons it's so expensive, particularly as you get over the hills. There's just such a lack of senior housing, and you're seeing seniors leave the market as a result and have to, I mean, if you're a senior in Studio City today, where do you go? But there's really not a lot of good options. You've got to leave Studio City.
There's a handful of projects, but they are fully occupied and perhaps they're not on the boulevard either, several of them. So there are options, but you know, we do need more. We welcome more. I think the issue is,
Some are
they
functionally
within-
obsolete in
are they
comparison.
within the
You're
code?
exactly right, and they're full. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Dean. I thought you stopped speaking, and instead one of us broke up, and so you went silent. So I apologize. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I was just saying there are several. There's opportunity to build more coming, and I think the issue is, you know, is it appropriate if the economics don't work to have this exception to the specific plan, given the costs? And it is an irregular parcel. It's narrow. It has constraints, and that is certainly a challenge. And I commend, you know, all the efforts to date. I think it is a challenge, and there are code restrictions and constraints and a lot of issues here. You can't go down with parking. There's been a lot of issues with regard to this site. So hence that's where we are. But I think, you know, it's a beautiful rendition. It's just pretty big.
It is. You know, one more thing I might point out that Chad Lorenzo's on here, it reminded me of, and that is that if you look at the building, and one of the reasons we massed it on the corner is that there's really not a lot. I mean, and I have to be very careful because I know that everybody, I don't live there, but there's the majority of the houses across the river are really massed and facing the townhouses, right? Not so much the corner. If you
Agreed.
look, for example, even we've gone over there, we've done what we can about trespassing it. We're happy to go to people's house. If they want to invite us over into their backyard and take some photos and superimpose buildings, we're happy to do that. We didn't have that access. But we really tried to mass. If you look at Google Maps, even, for example, you can see that the houses really face the townhomes much more than the corner. And so that's really, we really did try to be sensitive with that massing as to where to put it. And it really is much more imposing. It sounds great, drop it a level and make it bigger along the site. We can do that. But I think that the community is going to be much less happy with the result of that building than they are with what we have here. I mean, we've really tried to get in and work with communities. We are not oppositional. We really want to be a good member of the community. We're trying to provide a good service in the community. And we really did give a lot of thought to it. We spent countless hours really trying to mass this the right way. So, I mean, we are trying to be sensitive to what the community wants and within the confines of what we can do.
I appreciate that. And I commend you for that. I think perhaps it needs to go a little further and deeper and make sure that everyone on that block, that there's a block party, and whatever we can do to emulate what could be, so that they can really get an idea of what's happening, you know, with technology today and everything, that every effort be set forth there.
All right, thank you, Dean. Lisa Sargent.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for everything you've tried to answer for us. But let me just say this. This project would open the floodgates for all of that little bit of space in those substandard lots where there is no way to fix Ventura Boulevard in any way, and allowing all these exceptions, and this height is just, it could be detrimental to Studio City and the movement on Ventura Boulevard. The whole purpose for this specific plan was to keep the traffic moving on the, quote, premier commercial boulevard in the San Fernando Valley. That's important. And when you think about what Studio City is, we are the gateway into the San Fernando Valley. We have at least 4 ways over the hillside that come down onto Ventura Boulevard. And allowing a massive building like that, and especially I have absolutely 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th thoughts about the small lot subdivision and the responsibility of the people that might buy all of those, and the fact that that just brings a building to live in on Ventura, not the ElderCare anymore. It's really not the ElderCare anymore. Certainly not what I envisioned. But those floodgates would be horrible. Also, I don't know if I've ever mentioned to you that we already had 2 proposed buildings in Studio City one on Ventura and one somewhere else, that did not go forward because they couldn't sell condos that were supposed to be for senior living. And I can't press upon you enough the noise that the cars going on Ventura cause, and the more massing and the more size of a building is going to shoot it not only up the hill, but all those balconies. Think about this, and all those balcony windows were open. It shoots into the river and up into the Colfax Meadows, like somebody's standing right next to you and talking to you when they're across the street on the other side on Ventura Boulevard. It's really quite remarkable. Also, what happens to the views of those houses that are on the hillside? That building at 77 feet with whatever the heck is on top of the rest of it has to be in front of those homes. It has to be. They're one little teensy lot away from Ventura, so I don't see how that could possibly not obstruct their views. So I really hope you'll think it down to something more palatable, because I really think that is the best use of the property, but not in a massive thing like this. Thanks.
Lisa, I just want to comment a couple of things if I can quickly from our previous
Sure.
discussions. We really have, just to be clear, and Brad, you can really comment, or you can put up the elevation. We really did limit the dealing of balconies and et cetera to the rear of these buildings. For example, the townhouses, the patios face Ventura. We use the elevator coming up to block that noise and view toward the homes behind, and kind of regard to your comments. We limited the ability for balconies on the rear of the building. And so it isn't, you know, your comment previously about all those being open and noisy. I mean, one we have 80-year-old seniors in here, they're not particularly noisy, but the windows and the balconies are really.
But James, they can't hear, so that makes the televisions louder. But also, putting everything on Ventura is going to make all the noise go up to the houses that are right there.
Yeah.
For lanes away from it. That's all it will be. That's all that's there. There's no way to do anything else. There's, you know, we can't cut into the hillside. It falls down if you cut into it. I can't, you know, I lived here practically my whole life, and I really know a lot of history about everything that's gone on in Studio City. And, you know, I really believe that I'm very leery also about whatever soil surveys and whatnot that you have taken for that property, because I believe there was a lake in that corner there. And I can show you pictures of the water sloshing over the channel right behind that building, and parts of that property falling down into the river for years and years and years. But be that as it may, I know you think you can put the one floor, which is excellent, but the rest of it is a gigantic change in the entire feel of Studio City. It's just way too big, way too tall. And I really wish you would figure out something else to do besides having that small lot subdivision there. So it's the same thing I'm saying over and over again. Thank you so much for listening.
Got it. Thanks.
Lisa, if I could also just say something about, you know, the concern of opening up the floodgates and this being precedent for other projects on Ventura Boulevard. The ElderCare facility ordinance is really unique in that way. It's special to ElderCare facilities because the city recognized that, you know, A, there's a need for more housing. B, this is not just a place where people will live, but it's where they will, I don't want to say the word play, but you know, where they would enjoy
Socialize.
their amenities. Yeah, socialize, dine with co-residents or their visitors. And the city really recognized that in establishing this process, and special findings need to be made for ElderCare facilities to justify, you know, the additional height or FAR or, you know, any other relief they're seeking. So it you know, non-ElderCare projects can't really point to this as an example, as a precedent for them to utilize the same exceptions from the specific plan, although these are not technically exceptions. So I just wanted to point that out. It really is a unique use, and the city recognized that when establishing this process, because they realize that, these projects, the residents are not going to impact the surroundings like a commercial project would, or a straight residential project would. It's really confined in that sense. So I just wanted to point that out. And the main building it's not seeking a 77-foot building height. It's a 65 and a half approximately foot building height. And the additional 11 and a half feet or so is just for some portions, the parapets that would cover the stair and elevator overends. So it's essentially a 20-foot increase, not up to 77 feet. I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Jessica. Lana? And then
Yeah, thanks. Oh, can y'all hear me? Just something that Jessica said just then made me think about the housing, and what's necessary is affordable housing. And anything being built now is going to be market rate, and especially here on this very expensive corner on Ventura Boulevard in a high income area. And that's lovely that there'll be 200 people who have a lot higher incomes as seniors, or a lovely retirement, that will be able to live there. But then what happens with all the other properties that they leave, whether it's a home or another apartment or something like that, they turn over to market rate, and it's higher and higher and higher. So anyway, I just had to get that out there. But the one thing that I also remembered I wanted to mention is on Ventura Boulevard, where you have the two entrances between the main building and one of the townhouse units, and then a second one between two townhouse units. Why is there not a third one on the end as well? It just looked like it would be a little bit more balanced. You'd have an entry for each one of the buildings at a certain, townhouse juncture. That's there. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lana. Brad, you may be able to address this, but I think we wanted to limit the number of driveways on Ventura. We may have even had a driveway on the far east in an earlier scheme, and I think there might have been a conflict and a reason why we intentionally eliminated that. I see you nodding, Brad. Yeah. So you may be able to remember the reason why, but yeah, we reduced it to 2, and I think that was well received. From the urban design studio, DOT, limiting the number of driveways. So we thought it'd be more beneficial to have shared driveways.
Well, I think it's more beneficial to the people who live there to have quicker access to where they live, but that's just me if I were to buy it.
So Lana, thank you. And that was our first representation, was to show a drive lane on the far east side of the property. Because we are providing the 13-foot right-of-way dedication, our neighboring property has not been required to enforce or provide that same right-of-way dedication yet until that site is improved. So there is a radius of a curb cut that needs, or sidewalk that needs to happen to meet the existing sidewalk. And that eliminated about 15 feet where we could provide that other drive lane. So complications with the existing neighboring property precluded us from being able to provide the drive lane as far east as we wanted to go, which is why it's sort of splitting the lot now.
Oh, they don't want to sell that other property to you?
Well, we didn't try to buy. I don't know. They're not developing yet, so they aren't required to provide that right-of-way dedication at this time.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Richard was next. Sorry, Dean, give me 1 second. Richard, go ahead.
A simple question. In the townhouse building area, why is it better to subdivide the units vertically rather than horizontally, notwithstanding the small lot ordinance?
You mean to have flats?
Yeah, that way everybody's townhouse is on an entire level, and if you're senior, it's easier that way. Less elevators too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hadn't thought of that one necessarily. I don't, I'd have to think through that one, Richard.
Okay, well, you'll tell us when you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. I don't have a good answer for you.
Dean, did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. I was kind of thinking about that prior. Can you share what, if there's a history or you've operated a facility of this nature along with the alcohol component that is
Yeah,
being
we haven't
asked?
built one of these in 20 years without them. In fact, our partners have gone back and retrofitted them. Honestly, we built our first one with a bistro in it in 2003, I want to say, and it was a result of my touring a project in La Mesa, east of San Diego, and it was like a light bulb in a sense. Again, my parents are now 80 and 85, but even back 20 whatever, they were late 60s, and I can tell you at 5 or 6 o'clock at night they were going to have a glass of wine. And in talking with the community down there, what I learned is, it was what was being forced on residents in a way was, well, if you want a glass of wine with your dinner, you got to sit in your unit by yourself, maybe invite a neighbor over, drink a glass of wine, and then go ahead and have dinner. Maybe come back and have a glass of wine. And it was kind of like this clique of it's almost like we're taking seniors and we're putting them back in college in a dorm and restricting their ability to have alcohol. And so it's not a free-for-all by any stretch. It's just really providing an amenity to the seniors so that they can go down before dinner and have a glass of wine if they want to, or have a glass of wine with dinner. And it's not it's not like a bar when you walk into a bar. It's a very limited, beer, wine, maybe some hard liquor depending, but primarily beer and wine. Some of our facilities are just beer and wine. So it's really an amenity to seniors. And it's very, very common now in these communities, with almost without exception.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, anyone else? Lisa Starkin, did you have something else to add?
No,
No?
no, thank you, everyone.
All right, thanks. Richard?
That's okay.
Anyone else? I am going to take a look at the participants, see if there are any more hands raised. Okay, no other hands raised. Did you want to add some closing comments? Jessica, Jim, Brad?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your feedback and your input. It's very valuable to the team. SRM, like Jim said, they really care about the community. They want to be sensitive to the surrounding area. And a lot of thought went behind the design and the reason the main building is oriented and shaped and sized the way it is. So we hope we can continue to work together on this. And if there are any other questions or feedback, we look forward to hearing that.
Yeah, I would echo that. I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate their input. It was a long meeting and I do appreciate everyone's time. I know this is your community. I know it's important. You live there every day. We don't. We really do try to be a good part of the community. I don't know that we can ever satisfy everybody. It's pretty hard to do, but we really do try to listen. We try to be receptive. And I was hoping that we had hit the mark better and would have satisfied maybe some more of the comments, frankly. And so maybe that's ours to do in the presentation, because we really did try to address the comments we heard and early on. And we're trying to provide a really necessary service in the community. We really are. So we believe in what we're doing.
And we really appreciate that. Brad, did you have anything to add?
Just to echo both Jim and Jessica, thank you all for your time and look forward to continued discussion with everybody.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you making the time and seriously, considering our community, our neighborhood, Ventura Boulevard specifically, to build this lovely facility for the elderly. Having said that, I find this project to be totally incompatible with the character of the neighborhood, in the sense that it is just way too high. It is way too tall. It's completely out of character for us here. When you do drive down Ventura Boulevard, especially in Studio City, you don't see many buildings this high. And this would definitely set a precedence for everyone else that is very interested in coming into Studio City. I'm sorry that you're having to be the scapegoat on this one. But something does need to be built on that corner. It is unsightly as it has been for a very, very long time. And there's nothing more that I would want for something to be built there. But at the height that it is, I feel that it is way out of proportion to what that corner can withstand, especially with the traffic that flows into the Radford Studios. And we don't even know what the future of that studio is at the moment either. So, but I like the fact that you want to take out, I hate to get rid of a couple of metered spaces right there at the corner, but I think it's necessary to do so, to put in a right only lane traveling westbound on Ventura, to be able to make that only right, because traffic gets held up so much right there at that corner. The community improvements, I highly stress and preface that need to be taken into consideration by your team with the river and the trees and everything else that needs to go along with it. And you do have to take the responsibility of keeping that portion of the river, which I would highly recommend, keeping it clean and clear. And as part of, as a community improvement necessity, I would advise that you do take on building the bridge and whatever else needs to be taken care of in that area, to just accept that responsibility and do it for the community itself. Aside from that, I want to go into putting a motion together with the help of my committee members here. I propose the following. The Land Use Committee of the Studio City Neighborhood Council opposes the ElderCare Facilities 5-story plus roof deck building at the proposed 65.5-foot height to the top of the parapet, and the additional 11.5 feet of height to the top of the highest rooftop structure, with a maximum height of 77 feet for the main building, with case number ZA-2021-9477-ELD-CUB-SPP-SPR, to continue with ENB-2021-9478-EAF. However, the Land Use Committee of the Studio City Neighborhood Council supports the conditional use permit for the sale and service of a full line of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption by the residents of the ElderCare facility and their visitors, guests in the C2 zone, as an incidental use in and accessory to the operation of the main building. Project address is 11611-11695 Ventura Boulevard and 4010-4028 Colfax Avenue, Studio City, California, 91604. So that is my motion that is on the table. Should you committee members want to add as a friendly amendment to what I just proposed, please raise your hand now and let it be known.
She is opposes the height.
Patty, you need to mute yourself, okay? Anyone? No one. Do you want to take it to a vote? Richard? You need to unmute yourself. Committee members, please unmute yourselves.
Yeah, I think it's a less than perfect solution. When our real objection is height, and we could basically have a conditional thing, it might be better, but it doesn't look like you want to come up with a conditional use. Say, okay, if less than 45 feet or something of that nature, it would be good to have a conditional thing. So they know what we're
The specific plan's requirement for height limit is 45 feet. That is a known fact.
okay.
So I have to spell it out.
I'm just saying is no, unless it complies with the specific plan. Something like that. Just say
Okay.
no, but, well, you can put
I'll
yes.
accept that. I accept
Pretty
that.
much implied.
Yeah, I accept that friendly amendment. Anyone else? Dean, Lana, Adele? I'm going to take it to a vote.
I second it.
Thank you. Let's take it to a vote. Lana,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Adele,
Yes.
Richard?
Yeah.
I am yes. Okay, that is the motion that has passed with committee. This will go to the neighborhood council next Wednesday. It will be on the agenda then. I expect Jessica or all three of you to participate. Please come. You will have at least 5 to 10 minutes. I'll make sure that to state your case then as well. And then we'll just take it from there. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Jessica, Jim, Brad, appreciate your participation, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda. So, it would be good for everyone to just take a look at that survey, please. Has anyone already taken this survey?
I have.
I looked at it.
So Lisa, I just want, I have a quick question about it. So I did the survey just between basically Coldwater and Witsit area, that particular stretch. I could do more surveys. Should I do more than just that area? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
please, that would be great.
okay.
If you know what I'd like to propose, I'm a little under the weather right now, and I would like to sign off, but I would like to follow this up with an email for committee to maybe take an hour or half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever you can donate of your time, to get together and to just kind of like put together our goals, our vision of what we'd like to make note of for this survey and beyond. I think we need to do that so that we're all on the same page. So I'll send out an email and then, you know, make some like options known for you guys, and then you guys choose from there. How's that?
That's a great
Sounds
idea.
good.
Okay, and please try and send this link out to as many people as you know, your neighbors and so on, your friends, family who live in Studio City, and take the survey. Actually, anywhere in the San Fernando Valley, because this pertains to the entire stretch. Okay, the 17 and a half miles, all the way from the Cahuenga corridor, all the way to through Woodland Hills.
Wow.
Okay, so I don't know where my last page of my agenda is.
That's pretty much it, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, then comments on members from subject matters within the committee's jurisdiction.
Is there a hand? Lisa?
Back about what you said. I think that's such a wonderful idea about the survey, but don't forget, you'd have to have a meeting. We can't discuss it because there could be stuff that we would have to vote on.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
you'll know what to do.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for your assistance.
Thanks.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Good night, Lisa.
Anyone else with any comments? Participants? No one else? Everyone's dropped off. All right, thank you. Thank you for all your input. Thank you for taking the time to follow the link that I had included along with the agenda in your email. I really appreciate you putting in the time to study that application. It wasn't easy. I mean, it was hefty, and thank you for doing so. I really appreciate your inputs more than you I can express and more than you already know. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
Good
Good night, everybody.
night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.